You're listening to Miss Style, Strength, and Grace with Deidre Murphy. This is your one-stop shop for style, fashion, health, and fitness. Deidre's passion is to help empower women to reach their fullest potential, both inside and out. Deidre and her guests will be discussing how to develop your style, health, and lifestyle hacks to energize your day and inspire you to keep reaching higher levels of success. Deidre is a professional fashion stylist, health guru, and Mrs. Washington 2017. It's time to get open and honest with Deidre.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Miss Style, Strength, and Grace. I am your host, Deidre Murphy, and I'm super excited to share today's guest with you. Her name is Alycia Darby. She is a former Miss California, and she founded the online brand winapageant.com. She's a best-selling author, a podcast host herself, course creator, and video influencer. Alycia's newest program, the Influencer Marketing Mastery Program, helps entrepreneurs, coaches create a personal brand online with media that attracts endless clients and changes the lives of people that need their expertise the most. Currently, Alycia and her husband reside in sunny San Diego, California. So I'm really excited for you to meet today's guest, Alycia, on today's show. I was recently able to meet Alycia at the beauty brand Believe Expo in Seattle, or Bellevue technically, where she was the moderator for Q&A sessions and even gave her own presentation on winning a pageant through interview. And later that same evening, I was thrilled to get to sit next to Alycia and her wonderful husband at the Global Beauty Awards, which think of those like the Oscars, but for pageants, where during dinner, Alycia and I talked about everything from pageants to marriage, faith, and our love of travel. She's such a sweet, down-to-earth person, and she was gracious enough to accept my invitation to being a guest on my podcast. I think her message of authenticity, personal image, and branding, along with her coaching skills, will give you, my audience, so many valuable nuggets of information that can span every aspect of personal, professional life. And with the name of the show and my theme of style, health, and fitness and pageantry, I think Alycia and I will cover so much in this information that you might even want to take notes. So with that, welcome Alycia to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here. And you're right. We do have a lot of overlap. This is going to be awesome.
I know. I'm super excited. I was like coming up with all my questions and I'm like, oh, we could talk about this, but oh, we could talk about that too. And like, hopefully this isn't like a 2-hour long interview.
Or hopefully it is. Hey,
maybe it is. Maybe we'll split it in a two-part series.
Yeah, there you go.
Love it. So if
Thanks for having me, Deirdre.
Oh, I'm excited to have you here. Thankfully, we're both in the same time zone, which is a little bit more convenient because sometimes my guests are on the East Coast and, you know, with just the 3-hour difference, it's nice to have somebody in the same West Coast time zone.
Yeah.
So if you can you give our listeners a little snapshot of what your life looks like and what you do?
Yeah. So I actually have been in the pageant industry for about 10 years. Actually, gosh, I've been saying that for 3, so it's probably been more like 13 now. But I actually have also a background alongside all of my pageant competition because, you know, we're not just pageant girls. Mm-hmm. As I was competing, I got a master's degree in higher education counseling. So I worked as a college professor on college campuses, which is what led me to Southern California. So growing up in Pennsylvania, coming to Southern California has been spectacular. I live in San Diego with my husband. We don't have kids. We don't have any pets yet, but hopefully soon. So my days right now are split between the brand Win a Pageant. So over the last 3 years, I've been developing the brand of Win a Pageant. And now I have been coaching other entrepreneurs and coaches who want to build their own personal brand. So these days, I am specifically working on this new program, Influencer Marketing Mastery, to teach coaches and consultants how to really leverage their skills with a wider audience.
Oh, I love that. Especially that's going to be some really good information for me as I'm transitioning a lot of my business online.
That's cool.
I listened to your video on your website, so I was able to get a little bit of background on you on the winapageant.com. But can you give my listeners a little rundown of how you got involved in pageantry?
Yeah. So I actually competed in my first pageant as a senior in high school. My sister had graduated the year before, and I was feeling like I was losing my best friend. So I made this big list of all the things that I thought I needed to do as an independent woman. And on there, I don't know why, win a pageant was on there. So I was like, oh, I have to compete in a pageant. Well, thank goodness I did not win that first pageant because I was not at all ready for it. So I didn't win, but I was at least introduced to the industry. And then a few years later, I returned, this time in the Miss America local system, and won that pageant. And was in the top 10 then on the Miss Pennsylvania America stage, came back a few times until I was first runner-up several times there. Then I was first runner-up in Illinois, also in the Miss America system, aged out, went to the Miss USA system, finished in the top 5 there. Then Miss Maryland Galaxy, won that title, then moved to California and was in Miss California there. And then it wasn't until I actually started the programs which I'm teaching now surround the legacy project. And as soon as I realized the concept of a legacy project is when I actually started to win. And that's when I then won Miss California International and did well at the national pageant. So that's sort of my history of competition throughout the US. It's been fun to compete in lots of different systems too. It's given me some good insights for my clients and to understand how each pageant is so drastically different. And each one has, the specific, you got to really understand the formula of scoring in order to create a strategy to do well in each one, so that has served me too.
Well, there could be a big difference going from, say, a Miss program to a Mrs. program, or from a teen to a Miss. There's so many different facets to that.
Yes. The biggest transition for me was from the Miss America stage to Miss USA. Mm-hmm. That was a drastic change just because the brand of what they're looking for is completely different. So I had to kind of bring out a whole different side of myself.
What would you, if you were to describe it in like 1 to 2 words, what do you think was the big difference?
The difference I found for me was that and the area that I was competing in was that the Miss America pageant, I always felt like I had to be perfect. There was a real sense for me to show up with all of the things in line, like the perfect hair and not a single strand out of place. And I had to have like the right outfits so that no one would judge me as impure. Like there was a lot of pressure around perfection. And then in the Miss USA pageant, because it's in the entertainment industry, which is really much more broad, it allowed me this new sense of just allowing me to just show up as me. And that was a cool, I wished I would have learned that lesson. It's not that Miss America was asking for all of those things. That was just my own story that I was telling myself up until that point, which explains why I was only first runner-up at the state pageants in Pennsylvania and Illinois, So it was until I released that pressure and just said, this is who I am, and here's what I'm able to bring the title, and to see my value not just as, oh, am I perfect? Am I fitting their perfect mold? But to really bring value in a way that would contribute. That was a huge shift for me.
I love that. And I think that's so important in every aspect of life, whether it's something that you're doing online with your business or just meeting with a client face to face or whatever, being who you are and real and authentic. We hear authentic so much nowadays, but it really is what helps people connect.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yes. And it just helps you do better work. When I look back at those days that I was really trying to be so perfect, it's so exhausting to think of all the qualities that I was suppressing in order to be this sub-zero self, that it really wasn't my highest quality of value. And then when I removed that, and you're right, it is definitely, for me, as I've grown over those last several years, these layers continue to peel off of me and allow me to continue to step into my authentic self. And it's not an easy process, and it's not something that just happens naturally, but it's absolutely worth it, as you said.
I love that. That kind of segues into how were you able to take the things that you had learned through pageants and then turn them into a coaching program and a business?
Yeah. So I have had a lot of excellent coaches along the way in terms of business. So I did work with a few pageant coaches while I was going through pageantry myself, but it was really the work that I did with entrepreneurs that helped me to understand pageantry in a new way. So for those out there that are entrepreneurs and competing in pageants, you just get it in a different way. there's this concept of adding value. So as an entrepreneur, I have to add value to the lives of not just my clients, but my potential clients. So those that haven't, fully decided that we're a great fit, they still need to be, enjoying value. And then also to my peers, so to other colleagues in the area. And all of those things, just adding value all around is such a vital component, and then perfectly translates well into pageantry. So as I was developing an online business before I won Miss California in 2014, I had started dabbling in entrepreneurism. I was working with the fitness industry, doing business development for studios. So this was in Los Angeles, which is, the fitness industry is like highly competitive. Mm-hmm. And so business development was not an easy task, but because I was trained under some really great people and working in that entrepreneur space, I really had a great leg up, I guess. And so then I was able to apply those strategies to win Miss California and then continue on. And what I found is that when you have a signature process, this is what I teach now in the interview, my old programs, the interview game plan, that now the influencer marketing is, you've got to clarify your message and make it that has to be really from you. We call that your heart story, meaning it's like extremely unique. But then you have to also clarify a signature process. So just to be a pageant coach really isn't enough in a competitive market. Imagine a fitness coach. You don't just go looking for any old fitness coach. You want somebody that specializes in what you offer. And you know this, Deirdre, as a stylist, you've got to specialize in something very specific so that people aren't just, well, I just need any old fitness trainer will do. Mm-hmm. No, they're looking for a specific problem that needs to be solved. So I looked back through my history and through what was it that I was really doing that made me successful in pageantry. And it was that interview. Interviews were easy for me because I had a legacy project. And when you've got a legacy project, you've got something to talk about, something that's different than everybody else. It makes you stand out, makes you unique to everyone. The judges are curious about it, so they're excited to talk with you. So that I just turned into a very step-by-step linear program that other people could follow the steps to. And that is what made it successful.
So I've heard a little bit about your legacy project, actually, at the expo that I attended a couple weeks ago. So can you tell my listeners a quick overview of what that is? And then so kind of a two-parter here, how can people translate that into the things that they're working on, whether it's for their business or their own programs, regardless of pageantry involvement or not? How can they translate that legacy project?
So a legacy project basically is two things. It has to be something that is unique to you as an individual, meaning it has to come from your own strengths. It's something that without you, nobody else could do it. So that's thing one. The second element is that it has to be able to continue without you. So it's something that you set up on your own, and then you can step away from it. So in pageantry, this works great because as a title holder, you can set up your legacy project, but then you can step away from it at the end of your year, and the pageant and all of the people that loved it during that moment that you were the title holder are still able to benefit from it as you continue. So for example, my legacy project when I was Miss California was called Get a Better Body. So I share with you, at the time I was working in the fitness industry, and I researched, why is it that why aren't all of us disease-free and thriving and healthy and working out on a regular basis? And so I looked at the research. I did extensive research just myself, but then I also asked a lot of my clients who were in the gym and who were getting healthy and who were active. And I said, why are you doing this? What's your drive? What's your motivation? And they said, I just want to have a better body. And I was like, oh, okay. So consistently, the phrase everybody was using was to get a better body. So I thought, well, let's use the number one motivating factor of get a better body and shape it into a workout program. So I created this 8-week workout program. I was a certified fitness trainer. And of course, I had a background in internet marketing. So I created an online program. Within the first week, we had 100 people signing up without any advertising or anything. We had 100 people sign up just for my warm market. And it was all about this free class that they could take 8 weeks of fitness. that program still exists on YouTube today, Get a Better Body. And the 8-week program, then I was able to take that. And so for my legacy project at the national pageant, I was pitching partnership with the American Heart Association, which was the national pageant platform, and my work as a spokesperson with the International Sports Sciences Association to use their studio and to partner with them to get a DVD into the hands of people in 186 countries worldwide. So imagine saying that to your judges. That's like pretty impressive. They're curious about that. It's different than all of the other women. And so now it's something that they're excited about talking about. So now your second part of your question was, how does this translate to business? Well, what I've found success in is online business. And you mentioned too, Deirdre, that you're looking to get your business to be virtual as well. So I believe that in today's day and age, there is no reason that entrepreneurs should have to limit their services to just in person and just local. And the reason we have so many things that we are able to just, so quickly, there are resources everywhere that are able to connect us. And if you, as an entrepreneur, truly believe in your services and that you are the best person to provide that specific information with your signature process to truly make epic change in people's lives, then you should want to be able to connect with people all over. So the way we do this is through online work. I have found to just be, it's scalable, so the pageant interview game plan is my 4-week online course. It includes a lot of excess coaching and services, but the main course is all housed online. So the women are able to go through the program at their own time. There are downloadables that walk them through it. So I'm a firm believer that every entrepreneur who provides a service should be offering it online, because then it's not time for money. As a personal trainer for many years, I was exchanging time for money. Even as a professor on college campuses, I got paid for the classes that I took. So I had to show up for class in order to get paid. But now when you have an online service, you don't have to be there all of the time because you're creating a scalable business. So it's very similar to a legacy project.
I love that. And it's so important too, because then people have more time, more freedom, which means more, purpose in life. If you have that freedom, that means you can give back in other ways, whether it's to your family, your kids, or your own philanthropic efforts. You have that availability to do that because you've been able to scale your business. So I love
Absolutely.
that. Now, what about somebody that doesn't own their own business? Like, let's say somebody that's not an entrepreneur, but maybe they work in the corporate world or, real estate, something like that. How could they use the idea of a legacy project to help them in that career? So
we are all creative beings. We were designed by a creator and we were made in God's image. We are the only creatures on the face of the planet that speak and things are created. Things are built just because we speak. It could be that we are speaking life into somebody else. We're prophesying that they are going to be a great person. They're going to grow up and be successful or whatever. So our creative energy will be used, whether for good or for bad. So I say, let's use it for good. Yeah. Recognizing that you have a creative power inside of you, that you're going to create whatever it is that you speak. So even if it is simply, and we all have strengths, we all have talents, we all have got skills and passions. So when you just spend a little time reflecting on what are those things that I'm really good at? And if I were to just get creative, an exercise that I use with my clients if they're creating their program from scratch is I say, imagine that you have no limitations at all. You have immense amount of energy. You've got all the time in the world and all of the money under the face of the planet. What is it that you would want to develop? And everybody has an answer to that. Everybody has an answer to that. Even if it is a nonprofit organization, or even if it's that they just wish that everybody would start smiling more, there is always something that we can do with our creative energy. So step one is think about what is it that you personally have. What are your strengths? What are your giftings? What are your passions? And what is it that you want to create? And then how do you create it to be ongoing? So for example, clients of mine have created projects. Like one of my pageant clients created a project. She loved science and particularly botany. So she created a science lesson plan. She also happened to be a teacher. She created a science lesson plan, and then she partnered with the Home Depot and she put this lesson plan up online. if somebody were to purchase it, they would download the curriculum for this lesson, and then Home Depot would ship them the goods for their classroom. So now we've got customized curriculum. This can live on without her. And she's a teacher. This wasn't supposed to be a business that she was creating, but it still worked well. I had a girl who had a similar program with the arts where she partnered with Crayola Crayons, which is in Pennsylvania, and was able to get art packages delivered to schools with curriculum for programs in STEM so that the arts could be reincorporated. So there's so many different things that we are able to have access to with just a little creative energy that we already have.
That's amazing. Well, and it shows too that you don't just have to be, an owner of your own business. You could be a teacher. You could be, in the corporate world and still create this legacy,
Yes.
so that you can help impact the world for generations and years to come.
Yes.
That's so inspiring. I love that. So if people are interested in working with you and learning more, especially about your new program, where would you recommend that they start or look into working with you?
Yes. So AlyciaDarby.com is the website that represents the new brand. And the development of this brand will be similar to how I developed Win a Pageant and the strategy in which I'm teaching others to develop their brand. So we start with a signature process. We start with building out the brand images online, and then we launch the media. And so this is the stages that I'm in right now. So I've got my brand images up online. The website is rocking and rolling at AlyciaDarby.com. And if you go there, then you will be able to watch the progress of how I start the show. The show's still in production right now, so it will likely be launching, I would guess, probably sometime in probably actually close to when this episode airs. So April or May of 2018.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
but everything will be at AlyciaDarby.com.
Awesome. Love that. So let's segue into, speaking of like media and websites, podcasting. You also have your own podcast. It's called Win a Pageant, or the Win a Pageant podcast, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So why did you start this show, and what do you hope your listeners gain with every episode?
Yes. So the Win a Pageant podcast is designed, there are two. The first reason is to serve those that do not have access to this type of high-level coaching. Where I grew up in Pennsylvania, I didn't even know pageant coaches existed. Like that, I had no clue that was even a thing. I wished I would have known because I would have wanted to hire them. But I didn't even know that they existed. So, but I did know about YouTube. I did know about, at that time, podcasts really weren't that popular. But I did know that there were other sources to get information, books and things like that. So when I started Win a Pageant, it was designed to be accessible to those that are in even remote areas of the world. I think this was yesterday or Sunday, I had two women email me, one from India, one from Kenya, saying they don't know where else to get coaching and how can I possibly help them, because they're like, I've been listening to your podcast. These are so good. I really need more information. Where can I get started? And fortunately,
that's amazing.
I have an online program. Yeah. So I'm able to continue to serve them. So it's truly, that has been a huge blessing to be able to serve women around the world that wouldn't otherwise have access to high quality coaching material. So that was really the first reason. And then of course, the second reason is to build the business. So I believe that influencer marketing is about first creating an influence and then using it to market your services. So my podcast allows people to experience me low risk. So they get to know know me through my podcast. They understand my training style. I'm a very linear trainer, so I'm always giving steps and points and helping people map it out in their brain. If that is a style that works for people, then they know how to find me to get more. And if it's not a style that works for them, then it's no harm, no foul. They'll swipe onto somebody else's podcast and it's fine. But if it's something that they know that they really connect to, they're able to kind of try it out without a lot of risk. They're not paying anything to test. And then they get a lot of value. Then they're able to say, okay, now I'm really ready for the deep work.
I love that. So they can kind of dip their toes in the water, fill you out, and then
that's right
how it is. I love it.
Exactly.
I wish that I would have found your podcast before I went to Mrs. America last summer. Like even just some of the stuff that we were talking about with like the Legacy Project and, telling stories. I'm like, I wish I would have known that. I mean, and I didn't even know there was really coaches out there before I got involved in pageantry.
Yeah.
I just thought like, oh, you just go and you win, right? Like I didn't know. Granted, that was years ago when I first got involved, but anyway.
True.
I know that you have your background in personal training. And so part of my podcast is also the strength portion of, health and fitness, which goes into my platform and my story of holistic health and healing. But, you have a background too in education, which we could also talk about, but you changed your path in that regard. So how did you get involved in personal training, and why was that such a passion for you?
Yeah. So I started my first bachelor's degree. Okay. So I went to school not knowing what I wanted to do, but I just knew I wanted to go to college. And so I started with a degree in broadcast communications because I always thought I was going to be a news anchor. And then I didn't really love the work. I learned a little bit about it, but I was kind of like, this isn't my calling. So then I switched to PR and theater and Spanish, and I had 15 majors in my undergraduate program. And finally I was like, I just need to graduate already. I need to get out of here on time. So I ended up choosing the degree that was most familiar to me. All of my family was in education. So I chose elementary education. It came very easy to me. And so ended up graduating elementary education. However, I knew I did not want to pursue that. I knew that was not my true calling. So I substitute taught for about a year. I loved working with adults as I was working with, I was subbing a lot at the senior high level. Mm-hmm. And I just was like, oh, this is so good. I just love working with adults. So ended up getting my master's degree in higher education and worked on college campuses and loved putting together curriculum. I discovered this passion for writing plans for people and then guiding them through the process. So the next passion that I had was fitness. So when I left that world and started doing business development, I was writing plans for people in the fitness industry and truly loving that work. So that's really how I got involved. But I wasn't in the fitness industry that long. I got certified and was only maybe doing it for about 2 years, and mostly at the business development level. So I probably only had a handful of clients as a personal trainer myself. And then I held workshops and things like that. I was a spokesperson for fitness organizations. But I knew that what I loved most was writing a strategy for somebody and then helping them walk it through. So then when I was launched winapageant.com, it made perfect sense because I was writing curriculum, creating a strategy for people and walking them through. So that has truly that's what I know is my gifting in this world and how I show up best. So I know now that I've done it in many different industries, that's kind of going to always be my path of how I create.
Well, that kind of answered my next question, which was, how did that certification of personal training serve you in your entrepreneurial path? So if there's anything you want to add on to that, I feel like you just kind of answered that. But
yeah. You know what helped a lot? I was in Los Angeles at the time when I was working at the college campus and also doing fitness on the side because, entrepreneurs like us, we are multi-passionate and we like to do more than one thing at a time. Same with pageant girls, same with a lot of busy go-getters. We like to have many passions that we're pursuing at once. And I was doing that at the time. And what helped for me was I was working with the International Sports Sciences Association, the ISSA. Mm-hmm. That was the first organization that I'd gotten introduced to. And there are many others, ACE and NASM and lots of other smaller organizations that certify personal trainers. But what I found with the ISSA is that they were small enough to really feel like family. They knew a lot of their personal trainers in Southern California. They're based in Santa Barbara. So they knew a lot of the people that they were certifying. So it felt really, I had mentors the entire time. So then I was able to work as a spokesperson for them and had mentors in that organization that helped to grow me as well. And the lesson I think from that is, even my entire time competing in pageants, I always would make decisions based on who is on the path that I want to be on, who will best lead me. So my first pageant that I competed in, it had a similar kind of family vibe. They were very active in the life of the title holder. Mm-hmm. My second pageant, same kind of thing. I was like, I'm looking for the pageant that makes the most sense for my long-term goals. And consistently, that is what I've always done. Even in professional organizations, when I was working on college campuses, even my degrees, getting my master's program, I was looking for who is going to be my leader? Where am I going to find a guide? I don't want to just, try to figure it out on my own and because it just takes so much longer that way,
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I just looking for a mentor, and the ISSA, I knew that they had that, and they did. So they drastically shortcut my time frame and how I explored that industry because I wasn't just trying to do it on my own. And that's why I believe in coaching too, because it definitely shortcuts, it gives you easy access to success.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So when you did train, I know you didn't train for more than about 2 years or so. If you were to give somebody a tip on working out and where to start, somebody that's maybe brand new at their health and fitness goals, like what would be your number one tip as a personal trainer?
It's been so long since I've had to like reach into my personal trainer brain.
Yeah.
So let me actually address this as just like human mindset and things in general. What I have found as something that many of us need to overcome first is what we call a limiting belief. So oftentimes we get into our own head over something that is literally not even in existence, and yet we've created it for ourselves. I call it the story we're telling ourselves. So for many of us, the story is, oh, well, all of my family's overweight, so I will be overweight too. Or the story could be, well, I could never start a business. All of my family are teachers. They don't know. No one knows how to start a business in my family. Or the story could be, well, I could never move that far away because my family would be so devastated. So all of those stories are things that I've held myself and really had to release and look at it from a new perspective. So oftentimes a coach will really help with this, but if this is a practice that you are truly invested in, then you can absolutely do it for yourself. And it's simply asking yourself, what reasons am I giving myself to not achieve my goal? Is it that I don't like the gym, the smell of the gym that I go to? Is it that I'm scared that the spin class is going to be too hard? Is it that I don't have the right footwear for weightlifting? Is it that it's too cold outside? So whatever those things are.
At 5 a.m. in the wintertime, the sun's not even up yet.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. And I know these excuses so well. Literally, these are my excuses, what I'm saying. These are things I've used as excuses. Like, oh, well, I don't have the right footwear. And it's like, Alycia, stop it. Go get the right footwear. And it's really, the challenge is that when you want something to be different, you have to do something different. And doing something differently is not easy. Really, rarely is it easy. And so it might take going to Foot Locker and explaining that you are looking for training shoes and you're not sure what to buy and you want to make sure that you get the right pair and here's your budget. I had to do that. And then I had to actually convince myself that I needed to roll. One of my biggest excuses for not running more was my knees were hurting. I had really tight IT bands and tendons around my knees. So I just would stop running because, after all, my knees hurt. I just can't do it. I can't be a runner. Yeah. And then I was like, okay, stop it, Alycia. Let's analyze this story and see if there might be another way. And so now that I have that strategy in my life, I'm able to apply it to everything because I think it does apply to everything. And fitness is interesting because fitness is such a common analogy for us to use because it's a physical representation versus mindset and other things that we have a difficult time seeing. But fitness, we can see somebody's six-pack. Yes, it's so much more tangible. We see the six-pack abs or we see the muffin top or whatever on ourselves or on others. So when we see it, we have a story around it, But the same can be said for our habits in business or our habits at work or how we're showing up for our friends or how we're showing up for our spouse. All those same things can apply. So it's like, look at the story and then ask yourself, am I willing to consider this a different way?
I love that. And it's so true. Like it just overlaps into all the other areas of life.
Yeah.
I love that because I used to have that story of like, oh, I'm not a runner, so I don't run. Like I just don't do it. And here I am and I'm training for a half marathon and I hit 10 miles the other day and I'm like, oh, okay. Like not that I'm like a runner per se, but I can train myself to get to that level. Like 3 years ago, if you would have asked me to run 3 miles, I would have been wiped out just at the thought of it. And the other day I was visiting a friend and we ran around Green Lake, Seattle, and just one time around is about 3 miles and we went on twice and I was like, oh, that wasn't too hard. Like,
wow.
it's just, it's crazy how you can like train yourself to do that, whether it's something in your mindset or your physical being, and just how that translates into other aspects of our life. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So my other, topic, obviously we talked about pageantry, a little bit of health and fitness. As a personal stylist, obviously I love talking style, not just fashion, but personal style, personal branding. I feel like it really does convey who you are without having to speak a word. And that's the same with, influencer marketing and brand strategies. So how do you help your clients create that kind of personal style for their personal branding and a cohesive brand identification?
Yeah. So there are the obvious technical aspects of branding, which my favorite is the images, but the technical aspects are like your font, your color scheme, things like that. And all of those are more what I find are simple because there aren't stories attached to them. There aren't stories attached to what colors I should choose or what fonts I should use. But there are stories attached to our personal image. So what I found is that influencers have to be able to like be out there. You've heard people say before, like, well, it's time for me to put myself out there. And there's a lot of scariness around that because there's emotion tied to what if they think this, what if they think this, what if they think that, right? So all of our old stories get cluttered up of all the things that we're afraid of. When really the real message is, what value are you bringing? So the way that I work with my clients around this specific topic of branding is we talk about what is the experience that you want your clients to have, and who do you need to show up as in order for them to experience that. So for me, I need my clients to show up with confidence. I need their experience to be confident because that's how you get more opportunities. That's how you are willing to put yourself out there, Mm-hmm. That's how you're willing to start a show and to do more public speaking and to turn on the camera and go. It comes from confidence. So who do I need to be in order to show up to give that person confidence? Well, I need to be inspirational. I need to be confident myself. I need to be not worried about the little tiny details that don't matter after all. I need to be wise. I need to be knowledgeable and constantly a learner. So now that I have that brand of who is it that I need to be, now we use our imagery to reflect those things. So now I don't need to show up as so perfect anymore. Now I just need to show up as confident, and I need to show up as inspirational, and I need to show up as all of those different things. So instead of working from the oh, I'm so scared to go on camera because, I need to dye my hair, or I need to, it's very similar to that experience I had transitioning from the Miss America system, where I felt like my way of being was kind of fraudulent because I was trying to put on the mask of what I thought was what they were looking for. And then when the Miss USA system, you really just get to be whoever you want to be. This is the story I was telling myself. And so I thought, wow, well, now who am I really? And how do I step into that? So it was that awakening of like, gosh, it isn't all about me. It really is about who I'm serving and who I need to be to serve them best. So that's how we approach branding. It's truly from the way of being versus doing. Then all the fonts and the colors and, those types of things fall into place. But first we focus on the way of being and how you need to show up. And then how do we cultivate that presence?
I love that. And it actually sounds really similar to what I do with styling for clients,
Yes.
Whether it's somebody that works as a home mortgage broker or a real estate agent, I ask them those kind of questions, like, how do you want your clients to feel after working with you? What's the experience you want them to have? And let's convey that with your styling. And so then you take it to the online level. Okay, now we've got it figured out on the outside. Let's take it to the online presence and make sure it matches.
Yes, totally.
We should work together. We should.
I love it. Yes.
Ooh, bling idea.
Yeah, that's cool. And you know what, Deirdre, it's interesting you bring that up. And I appreciate that about you because I have never been one that has enjoyed fashion. I am not a fashion. I don't like it. I get stressed out going to the mall. I get like, I don't want to have all these different things. And it's too much, to think of. It's not my forte. And yet I do recognize the value that it brings. So having a stylist is extremely important in the entrepreneur world as well, because when you show up, you have to be that person all the time. As an influencer, you have to always be that person. So if you are constantly faking it, it's exhausting, you know? So what I found is working with a stylist is valuable, because then you have somebody else say, oh, your way of being is this? Okay, well then here's what we need to put on to convey it. If I were to pick it out myself, my way of being, even just in selecting my wardrobe, would be like drained and frustrated and angry and unsupported. And that's how I show up to the mall. And so if I'm shopping from that way of being, then I'm going to not come home with very good things.
Be successful.
Exactly. So by having that support and somebody that's walking alongside you in those processes that are frustrating and anxious and all those things, when you align yourself with a support system for that, it just, now my way of being can be authentically me. I can be inspirational and confident, and that's who I am anyway. And that's what I want to, so now I don't have that heavy weight of the other, you know? So yeah, it's so cool that's an epic part of influence, how you're showing up in the world.
No, I love that. And it's so true, because there's things that I suck at. Like, let's just be real.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't be good at everything. And so like for me, you're kind of the opposite of me as far as what you're good at. Like, I worked with somebody to build some of my website stuff, and I'm not good with that. And I don't know what fonts mean what and what colors resonate or, translate online. But after talking with somebody that is an expert and them getting a sense of like, well, who is Deidre? What is her branding? What is she like? You know, we developed my core colors of like, I love pink and gold. And like, that's a huge aspect of my website and my online presence. And like, every time I see that, I'm like, oh, that's goody. You know, I like that. Versus if my website was, green and blue or random colors like that, like it didn't speak to me. But it took somebody else that was a professional in that setting and an expert in it, like you are an expert with online branding, to help guide me through that process. And
so true. I have this vision for the world that all of us as humans are functioning from our greatest strengths, and we are just serving one another with that. And I believe exactly what you said. You are the stylist. You should just be the stylist, right? And then I'd be the influence marketer. Okay, I teach you this, how to be influence. And we have somebody else who does this other thing. And we have somebody else who does this other thing. And if we're all like truly contributing our greatest strengths, then there's no heavy lifting, because you're relying on the other people who they love to do that thing, you know? And you're right. And that's the value of a coach too. As a coach, that's what, and a consultant, that's truly what we're offering is, and what we, as a consultant, you and I, we believe in it as well, because we know the burdens we lift off of our clients. So then it's easier to hire a coach when you are a coach, because you see the value in it.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to that saying too that I hear a lot in entrepreneurial worlds and groups is a rising tide lifts all boats. And it's not about like, oh, well, I do this, but I do this better than so-and-so, and she does this better than me. It's, let's all lift one another up, because as we're all rising, all the boats come up higher.
That's exactly it. Yes, spot on.
So what if somebody, is listening and they want to have some tips for creating a cohesive online brand and an online style? Do you have any resources that they could go to or start binging on that you could provide?
Oh, that's great. So I don't have binge-worthy resources just yet, although they are in production, so coming soon. The goal would be to have the production side of the podcast for Alycia Darby will be up and running in a couple of months. That will be where I house all of the free information. I think really the first place that I think all of us need to begin is to identify what is the thing that you would be willing to show up as for the rest of your life. And this doesn't mean that this is the thing that you are going to do for the rest of your life, but just how you are going to show up. So I've committed to showing up as confident and integritous, having high integrity for the rest of my life. And I know that I can do that because it's my way of being anyway. It's who I am, right? So now that is my brand. That is your personal brand of who you are and what you bring to the table. All of the other elements are just the billboard. It's just kind of showcasing the personal brand. But if I'm able to show up as those things constantly, which I am because they're who I am, that's what you need to discover for yourself, for your listeners rather, is like, what is it that what's your thing that you know you can show up as all the time? And then the second step is, how does that translate to your life right now? So I work with a lot of clients that say, oh, I want to, in our industry, Marie Forleo and Gabby Bernstein and Chris Carr, people look at these women and say, wow, that is the brand that I want. And I know what they're saying is, I want those elements of a brand. I want the elements like a website. I want an element like a show. I want an element like a headshot. I want those are elements. But the thing that makes those brands work is who they are and their commitment to showing up as that all the time in all areas of life. So 2 ways that you can do it right now for those listening is, thing one, what are you willing to show up as for the rest of your life? And then ask yourself, how can I show up as that right now? So one of the things in styling, if I want to show up as confident and in integrity all the time, but when I go to the mall, I don't have those qualities, how can I show up at the mall with those qualities? Bring a stylist, that's the answer to that question. How can I show up as confident and with integrity when I go to the gym? Well, maybe I need to have a plan of action of what I'm going to work on that day. Or maybe I need to come 5 minutes early so I can stretch and kind of get my body warmed up so that then I feel confident. How
Scope
can
it out
you?
A little bit.
That's right. Yeah. So it's like, think about in your life right now, whether you are an entrepreneur or not, if you have a dream for a business one day, but you're working a 9 to 5 right now, and every time you walk through that door to work, you get cranky and you're really nasty to people and you're like irritated that you're there. And so you're like doing poor quality work. That is your way of being, and that is your brand. So welcome to you. You got to shift that first before you decide to add a microphone to it and blast it out to the world. So that would be the biggest tip that people can do right now to really identify their brand and then work on it just right now in life,
That's awesome. I think we could just wrap up the podcast at that quote. If that's all that people remember, I think that's awesome right there. And it really reminds me of the 2 kind of quotes that always are in my head is, 1, how are you going to choose to show up? And then 2, how you do anything is how you do everything. So like you just said, if you're showing up to work and it's a 9 to 5 and you're cranky as soon as you walk in the door, that's how you do everything in life, versus even if it's a job you hate, if you walk in, you're like, I'm going to make the most out of this day. I'm going to serve my customers as best as I can, or your students or whatever it is. That's how you do everything. So I love that. Mm-hmm. If you had one quote or, tip to inspire other women to succeed, what would that be? Start now.
That's my tip. Do the thing. Do the thing that's on your heart right now. Start it now as fast as you can, because I believe that God gives us dreams. We have dreams that are built on the inside of us since we are knit together in our mother's womb. And that dream is designed to be lived out during your life. And sometimes we are waiting for the perfect moment, or we want it to all look great before we start, or we're like, well, I don't understand it just yet. It doesn't matter. You've got to start right now. Do it in your local community. Do it after work. Do it on the weekends. Do that thing. Start right now, because that is going to be the thing when you can't steer a parked car. So we're always like, God, give me direction, show me what to do. But then we're not making any steps. He will direct our steps, but you got to take the steps, right? So it's start now and he will direct those steps. I believe that.
It's you got to put on the life vest. You get thrown the life vest, but then you got to put it on.
Put it on.
Got to do the steps.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. And what's funny was I was listening to a Tony Robbins podcast interview this morning, and he said that was his favorite 3-letter word was now. Start now. I love that.
Yes. I love that.
Well, I'm going to move on to some questions that I typically ask all my guests as we start to kind of wrap up today. If you were to sum up in 3 words, what are your top 3 core values?
Oh, yes. I have my core values right here. I have 5. So I'll give you 3 of them. 1 is trust. So for me, trust means that trusting the process and trusting the person and trusting the moment. So I always want my clients and my audience and my listeners to trust me. So I will always follow through on what I say I follow through. If for some reason I don't, then I explain myself. I say, oh, I forgot about this, or I want to be transparent about
like,
things.
Take responsibility.
That's right. Yeah. Because I want them to trust that they can come to me for what they need to come to me for. So I also set very clear boundaries for that exact reason, so that they know what they can trust me for and what is not in my realm of possibility. But then also to trust my clients. So I believe God brings me the right people at the right time. And if somebody wants to start $1 million business and they're going to do it by starting their YouTube channel, I trust that is going to work because that's their dream. God gave them that dream. I'm just their guide to walk them through it. So trust is really important to me. Another is generosity. So generosity is huge. This is what drives me to give free online content constantly, because I am a generous person and that is really important to me. All of my programs are priced. This is something that could be a useful tip as well. A lot of people worry, like, what should I price my program at? If I have an online coaching program, like, what should I price it at? I believe that you should be delivering 10 times the value of the price of the product. So anytime I create products, I say, okay, what is the actual value of this? Mm-hmm. And then I divide it by 10, and that's the number. 1/10 of the value is what is actually the price. So I truly believe, I tell my clients, you will always get more than you pay for. Like, you've got to just trust that you will get bonuses and you're going to get extra calls and you're going to get surprises and presents, and like, just generosity is really important to me. And then the final is, let's see, gosh, I'll just say them. They are inspire. That one is really important to me, to inspire, but also be inspired. Discernment. To discern is to really have wisdom in decision making. So I frequently will pause and kind of take a moment to really discern a situation before acting. And then love. I believe that so much can be solved just with love alone. And that is, to me, unconditional love. So loving people right where they're at and recognizing that they're in the middle of their journey, just as we all are, that they're not a finished human, as neither am I. So loving people along the way.
I love that. Those are all really great tips. I'm the same way. If somebody were to say, oh, sum up your life in 3 words, I'd be like, can I give you 5?
Yeah.
I'm always like that kind of person. I love that. Do you have any resources, like a book or a favorite podcast, or even like a video tutorial that you love and that you've been binging on that you would like to share with my listeners?
Well, let's see here. I want to think of ones that are on topic with what we discussed today. So, well, one of my favorite business strategists is Russell Brunson, the creator of ClickFunnels. Mm-hmm. He created this book. He has several books now, but the one that I'm thinking of that would be a great place to start is called Expert Secrets. And Expert Secrets gives a sort of fun and logical step-by-step way to create an online company. Maybe not necessarily a brand, although that is included as well. But yeah, exactly. But that is really a truly excellent read. And then another one that's like just super fun is The Energy Bus. The Energy Bus, and I can't recall the name of the author that wrote The Energy Bus, but it essentially describes this guy. It's a make-believe story, but it's told as though it's happening in real time. Mm-hmm. And it tells the story of a man who had a flat tire on his car, and he's on his way to work, and everything's falling apart at home and at work, and his team won't listen to him, and all these problems. And then he gets on this bus, and the bus driver, each day that he gets on the bus, she teaches him a new life lesson of leadership. And I found that those lessons can be applied to everything. And there's some tough love lessons in there too. It's a really easy read. I recommend it for Audible, actually, to listen to.
I'll have to check that one out. That will be on my new added to read list.
Yeah, well, it's a quick one.
All right, my last question. Again, this is very open to interpretation, so take it whatever way you want. What does it mean to do things with style and grace to you?
Well, I believe style is the way of being. That's how you show up in the world. So is your style happy? Is your style engaged? Is your style trustworthy? Is your style funny? To me, that's your way of being. And then grace is the definition of grace, as I'm familiar with it, is to give people stuff they don't deserve. And when you give people stuff they don't deserve, they will love you forever. And I truly believe that showing up with grace is vital to how we exist in the world. And giving people things that they don't deserve, it could be forgiveness. They did something awful to you, but you forgive them because you have grace. And it could be something that, in many cases, I will have clients who, I'll give out books, for example. Like I'll give books to people just for fun, like just because for no reason, just because I want to. And I view that as giving grace. So to me, it's how you show up in the world and being a lovely person by giving people things that are great, even if they don't deserve it.
Love that. Actually, that's what my pastor talked about at church the other day. So that's
cool.
Very
fitting.
Yeah. So where can my listeners find you, stalk you in a good way, online?
Yeah, totally. So the two sources are winapageant.com, and winapageant.com will connect you to all my other resources, including the free pageant course. And then the Alycia Darby brand is just alyciadarby.com, and that will connect you to all the other Alycia Darby resources for branding and for influencer marketing.
Love it. And just so my listeners know, it's Alycia with a Y. So it's Alycia, correct?
That's right. Yep. Alyciadarby.
Perfect. I love it.
Well, and it's Alycia Darby all over social media too.
Okay, perfect. I think I've already found you myself on Instagram. I'm like, I need to start following her.
Nice. Cool.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Alycia, for joining us today. And I think we gave away so many good nuggets and bites of information for people to start acting now with both style and grace. So thank you so much for joining the program.
Hey ladies, thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode. To help empower more women, please be a doll and rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. For show notes and other free resources we mentioned today, go to stylebydeidre.com.